How many I was going to cut open. I actually rinse these off a little bit so they don't smell quite so much. Okay, so these are sheep brains. Lots of things that we see on the human brains, you see in the sheep brain. You can see it's a slightly different shape. It's a little more elongated, different type of animal. But most of the structures are here. It's a mammalian brain. So all of the same structures. What's different is some of them are in different proportions. And some parts of the brain, like the forebrain part, is much bigger in humans, a little different than the human brain. In fact, why doesn't someone grab that colorful model over there, and we'll look at them both at the same time, of the human brain? Can someone just bring that over? And but the sheep brain dissections are something that are very common. You'll probably do this again. It's just the beginning for you guys. Wait till you do a human cadaver dissection. That will smell. And I'm actually hoping we at least go into the cadaver room once. It seems like you guys should have that experience, just to sort of. It's very cool, actually, and it's. I think you have to really go there to see and move away from just looking at models and pictures to see how valuable that is. Even though we're not going to have a lot of time for that. Here's a sheep brain. Anterior, posterior. Some of this is all the cerebral cortex here, which is what you're looking at here, this very colorful part. You can see it's big. In different mammals, it's different sizes, different proportions. As you move towards some of the higher mammals like the humans, this becomes really the largest part of the brain, the cerebral cortex part of it, but it's pretty big in sheep too. One thing to notice about the sheep brain is all of the folds that are here, just like in the human brain. If you looked at the mouse brain, it's pretty smooth, so very different. So all the sulci and gyri that are part of the sheep brain and also part of the human brain. Why is that? Why do we have all these folds?
Because we're smarter than the sheep.
Because we're so smart, right? But why? How does the folding make us smarter?
It makes it more stable because we talked about this in the lecture. Because if it was flat, it's gonna pull out of the. It's hard to store it.
Hard to store, right? So we're really just talking about how the cerebral cortex, that part of the brain, has gotten much bigger, and so we have much more tissue devoted to that. But that's a problem in that it's a lot of weight and it's a lot of room that you have to figure out where to put it. Mm-hmm. And so if you fold it, you can take a bigger surface area and put it in a smaller compartment. So that's really what the folds are about. And it's just, the thought of, if your brain was this big or your head, it'd be a little unwieldy. So it's a really heavy, dense structure, but it helps to have it sort of compacted in this way. But again, we've been able to grow a pretty substantial cerebral hemisphere. The other concern we had was childbirth. So for us who are bipedal and walking, that changes the shape of the pelvis. And it makes, which is an important piece for us to get up and be bipedal and have our hands free to do things. But it changes the shape of the pelvis it makes it a little bit smaller and a little bit more compact. So there are these issues related to childbirth also. So we're trying to, through evolution, sort of compensate for, different things are happening that benefit us, and so different strategies for dealing with that. So that's the other size issue. This is the cerebral hemisphere. Then what you're looking down here is sort of different parts of the brain, right? So really right here, this is the brain stem. Most of the structures that we're looking at here are part of this brain stem region, right? So the first part of the brain stem here is called the
pons?
This part down here, the part that connects the medulla oblongata, and that's the part that connects to the spinal cord. And then when it thickens right here, and we can probably, that's what these are for. You guys can open them up if you want and look at them, right? We're looking at the parts of the brainstem. Where it gets thicker here, it's referred to as the pons. And then just above that, and you can't see it, this is a connective tissue covering called, it's actually, we didn't talk about it, it's called the dura. It's a protective covering. So we have to actually peel that off a little bit. But above the pons is the midbrain, right? Yeah. So those are the three parts of the brainstem. And we can see them on this inferior surface. I'm going to take this off here. So this is what you see when you look at the inferior surface. I was just going to say, see this big structure I tore off right here? That's actually the optic chiasm. So part of the optic nerve. So the optic nerve is coming in. The chiasm is where it splits. Remember how we saw that picture where it goes from the right to left side? Well, it splits, and that's what's actually happening right here. Is you have this the two optic nerves come in and merge, and different fibers go in different directions, and that's how you get the right brain doing things for the left side, left visual field, and so forth. So that's what. But it's huge. So even in sheep, the visual system is really enormous. And let's see if just a few other things to think about. There are lobes, right, to the brain. So in the front, we call it the frontal lobe. This part right here is the two parietal, and they're paired, so there are two parietal lobes, two frontal lobes. In the back, that's the occipital lobe. And then over here on this side of the brain is the temporal lobe. So all those things still exist in the sheep brain. And then just like in the human brain, it's all paired. So there's this thing right here that is, you have the right and the left side, and then you have the right and the left side of the cerebral hemispheres here also. So one thing that we didn't have a chance to talk about but are really clear in the sheep brain and also in the human brain is that somehow the right and the left side of the brain have to speak to each other. So the axon fibers from the right side of the brain go to the left side of the brain and back and forth. There's a lot of communication between those two things. And that's this huge white matter track, where axons are going from the right and left side of the brain. That's referred to, this purple thing here, it's the corpus callosum. So that's just, it connects the right side of the cerebral hemisphere specifically. So the conscious parts of the brain. So if you're looking at here, that's what this big thing is right here. That's the corpus callosum. And then if we cut this open, we can cut it in half. Same thing. Here, you look in here, you can also see, this is all the corpus callosum right here. So it's huge. Lots of axons going from the right and left. Let me just open this up a little bit more so everyone can see it. But this is the corpus callosum right here. So this structure right here. So the other thing to notice is, remember we talked about white and gray matter?
Yeah.
You can kind of see that here,
color,
where it's the kind
lighter.
The gray, the sort of brownish part is the gray matter. So this has been in formaldehyde, so it's changed over time. The white and gray matter refer to a fresh brain, and then you do see gray and white, but it's different. But you do see different colors. So the stuff that's whitish or kind of whitish yellow or light brown, that's the white matter, and then this darker brownish stuff is all the gray matter.
So the gray matter is kind of like the one on the outside layer.
For the cerebral cortex, right? And also you can see, what's this structure right here below the cerebral cortex?
The cerebellum.
Cerebellum, and you can also see it here too. You can see that there is things, you can see white matter and you can see gray matter. So they're really, and remember the gray matter is what?
Cerebral cortex. Neurons.
But it's neurons, but so is white matter. It's all nervous tissue. What's the difference? Cell bodies and dendrites in the gray matter. That's where all the synapses are. The white matter
Axons.
are the axons. So they're kind of long and they travel together, create these white matter tracks and or nerves, as we call them, in the peripheral nervous system, and are carrying information to a different part of the body, to a different part of the nervous system. Okay, so now we're looking at a hemisection, right? So we have the cerebellum here. You can also see the different parts of the brain stem. So here's the medulla oblongata. Here's the pons. Here's the midbrain structures here. But then remember there's this piece up here that's the diencephalon. That's kind of underneath the cerebrum. It's not really part of the brainstem. It's on top of that. So that's what you see up here. And one of the structures I wanted to point out is this big structure over here. This big, large thing is the pineal gland in the sheep. It's huge. So that's the epithalamus. And then below this is the hypothalamus, which is located right here. And then what you're not seeing right here is the pineal gland. And that's because the pineal gland is just below the hypothalamus, but it's actually sitting in this bony part of the cranium called, it's the sphenoid bone. It's got this little hole that the pineal sits in.
Turkey saddle.
Oh, is that what, yeah.
That's what it says in the book. The
Okay.
sella turcica.
Yeah, is that what it means? I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Oh,
So it
okay.
translates into turkey saddle.
Okay. A Turkish saddle.
Yes.
It's the Turkish saddle. Yeah, yeah. It's this kind of elaborate saddle with lots of points on it. That's right. It is that. So there's a hole in there that the pituitary gland sits in. It protects it. But when you dissect the brain, it tends to, because it's just this thin stalk that protects it, it tends to stay within the sella turcica and kind of get broken off. And so we don't usually see the pineal gland. The pituitary gland. So remember we talked about that today as the master hormone gland.